Oh, I'm Gary Kutak, and I make good trouble in East Dallas.
And he's been doing that a long time.
The Daily Dispatch. It's just amazing. Because if you want to know what's happening in Texas politics, that's your go-to. Every single morning, it's addictive. I love starting my day with Progress Texas.
It's Thursday, July 17, 2025, and this is the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch. Rapid response on the breaking news stories Texas progressives need to know. I'm Chris Mosier. 4 days from now, a special legislative session is set to begin in Texas. It started strangely and somewhat innocuously enough as a redo of Dan's ban, the ham-fisted wholesale ban on THC products in Texas. Conspicuous mainly in the zealous support of Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, which was followed by a veto from Governor Greg Abbott. Then the July 4th flood gave that session a much more serious and somber tone as the governor and state officials cast the special session as a potential opportunity to shore up safety policy that had clearly been neglected at multiple levels in the Guadalupe River Valley. But as the session draws closer, folks following politics are most focused on the Trump-ordered Republican plan to carve up the Texas congressional map in such a way as to deliver to the dear leader 5 additional Republicans in the United States House of Representatives. We've talked a lot this week about the possible scenarios and the reasons behind this rare mid-decade redraw. Progress Texas advocacy manager Reagan Stone weighs in saying, quote, "They're scared, y'all, because you don't change the rules mid-game if you think you'll win. It's a simple fact that Texas Republicans can do this if Democrats show up at the start of Monday's start to a special session, or don't exit timely during the 30-day call to show. Remember, the Speaker can instruct lawmakers to stay in the House, enforced by an armed guard if they feel Democrats aim to leave, to break quorum. But if Dems do decide to leave, they not only play to Abbott's political posturing of his manufactured hostage of Hill Country flood relief, they would also have to pay a considerable fine. In 2023, a law was passed in retaliation to the state House Dems leaving in 2021 over a voting restriction bill, imposing a $500 per day fine each day on each member when they are not present in the chamber. Doing the math, that's 62 Dems, 100 out of 150 members to make a quorum to start any legislative day's work, with a minimum of 51 reps required to stay away from Texas. That adds up to $25,500 per day in fines, or $765,000 per 30-day session, not including extra costs like travel and security. So, what's a fair election worth? Is that price tag worth voting rights of those in East Texas or South Texas, mainly black and Hispanic majority districts? By the way, Governor Abbott could sign an executive order allocating funding for disaster preparedness for the Central Texas region any day. He alone chooses not to, unquote. And the fact is, Donald Trump's going to need all the help he can get not to lose the U.S. House next year, and Texas Republicans in this special session starting Monday are ready to do whatever he asks. All 3 branches of the federal government are in play here as Trump openly muses about an unconstitutional third term in 2028, openly seeks to stack the deck in order to keep the Congress in control in 2026, all as he's definitely completed a takeover of the U.S. Supreme Court. Ari Behrman at Mother Jones reminds us that that court will be the ultimate judge on whether or not whatever results with this redraw in this Texas special session passes constitutional muster, pointing to a 2019 decision in which Chief Justice John Roberts wrote for the majority that federal courts could not review, let alone strike down, claims of partisan gerrymandering, which led to North Carolina Republicans redoing their map ahead of last year's election, which gave the GOP 3 new seats, plenty to swing the majority. So, the Texas scheme isn't particularly novel, and despite talk of overreach or dummy manders in which the plan could backfire, we must notice that this plan has been executed successfully, recently, to great effect, just last year. Interesting read from Mother Jones in the show notes. We've talked about the difficulty that California Governor Gavin Newsom faces in his state with a possible countermove and the opposite direction there, but he continues talking about it. Jeremy B. White and Nicholas Wu at Politico say Newsom is still pushing to redraw California's congressional districts in response to the threat of Republican gerrymandering in Texas. On podcasts and social media, Newsom has floated scrapping the state's independent redistricting commission to boost Democratic power in the Congress out of California. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries has recently met with California Democrats to discuss the notion, which of course faces major legal and political hurdles and has its detractors among Democrats in California. some seeing it as extreme or anti-democratic. Newsom defends the plan as a breaking the emergency glass last-ditch effort to protect democracy, proposing two risky strategies: immediate redistricting through the legislature or a public referendum asking voters to override the current nonpartisan system and approve a Democratic-friendly map. All, of course, well worth watching, as Texas and California appear to be squaring off. Even as Republicans scheme to further stack an already stacked deck, one immutable political fact remains: Donald Trump's policies are actively hurting Texans, regardless of how they voted last year. Amber Heckler at Culture Map Dallas points to another Wallet Hub study that ranks Texas the #1 state in the country for financial distress, taking into account factors including average credit scores, the share of people with accounts in forbearance or with deferred payments, the one-year change in bankruptcy filings from March of last year to today, and search interest indexes for terms including debt and loans. While we do have a bigger GDP than many countries around the world in Texas and one of the top 10 strongest economies in the country, the Texas miracle is failing to protect everyday Texans from Trump's ruinous policies. That certainly doesn't leave out our country cousins. A report in the Amarillo Globe News lists 15 rural hospitals in Texas that are at risk of shutting down, defined as hospitals that are in the top 10% Medicaid payer mix of such hospitals around the country, and that the hospital has experienced 3 consecutive years of negative total margin. The small Texas towns on this list, where everyone, again regardless of their 2024 vote, is likely to soon find themselves miles and miles from solid medical care, are Anson, Smithville, Del Rio, Marlin, Plainview, Big Spring, El Campo, Levelland, Winters, Palacios, Haskell, Colorado City, Bonham, Llano, and Marble Falls. All due to cuts in Donald Trump's big bullshit bill. Mental health programs in Texas schools are also set to take a $600 million hit. Stephen Simpson at the Texas Tribune says school programs in Texas on chronic absenteeism, mental wellness, and crisis services that were created in response to the Uvalde school shooting, as well as social workers and counselors, all are on the chopping block. After every school shooting, including and especially the Uvalde incident in 2022, Texas Republican leaders renew their narrative, blaming a widespread mental health crisis rather than the widespread proliferation of guns across our state. The hypocrisy here is blinding. Notable, by the way, on the Uvalde incident, also from the Texas Tribune yesterday, a state appeals court judge ordered Uvalde County and its school district to release records and documents related to that shooting, overruling county officials on behalf of several news orgs, including the Trib, who have been trying for years to gain access to those records, and will continue to follow that. The Texas Tribune is also following the money, as we all should, all the time. Eleanor Klibanoff and Alejandro Serrano detail the enormous amounts of money that are already being poured into Republican primary races, from the U.S. Senate to Texas Attorney General to state controller. Money talks in politics, unfortunately, and it talks really, really loud on the Republican side. One could glean from this that the primary is what's important to them, as Republicans in Texas have settled into complacency when it comes to the statewide general election. They assume they had that in the bag already. As you may have caught one click back on this podcast feed, another Democrat has stepped up to replace the presumably outgoing Ken Paxton at Attorney General, and that's former Galveston Mayor and prior AG candidate Joe Jaworski. Full interview with Joe preceding this report on the Progress Texas feed, and see a video version on our YouTube channel as well. We've been proud to partner with Joe lately, platforming his radio show, The Midterms, from KPFT FM in Houston, in which he's interviewed the likes of new Texas Democratic Party Chair Kendall Scudder and former Congressman Beto O'Rourke. Joe says, quote, "The last 30 years have been brutal. The entire weight of those 3 decades is showing its effect. Texas deserves so much better," unquote, and agreed. Joe Jaworski becomes the second Democrat to declare for AG. As we told you yesterday, Dallas State Senator Nathan Johnson is in as well, and we look forward to the debate. Stepping up in South Texas, another Democratic challenger in one of few Texas congressional districts with some swing to it. Still more from the Trib here. Gabby Birnbaum writes that Ada Cuellar, an emergency physician from Harlingen, has launched her campaign for Texas's 15th congressional district, becoming the first Democrat to enter that race to challenge incumbent Congresswoman Monica Dela Cruz. The 15th has become a prime example of the struggles that have developed for Democrats in South Texas and among Latino voters, who make up about 75% of the electorate there. De La Cruz flipped the district in 2022 after it was redrawn to favor Republicans, and won re-election in 2024 by 14 points, despite heavy Democratic efforts. With the district leaning Republican by 7 points, the Democratic nominee will face a tough challenge. Our mission at Progress Texas is to counter the conservative disinformation machine, which is funded by oil and tech billionaires and religious right-wing activist groups, all while fact-based independent media outlets increasingly face funding threats. While access to those outlets is frequently free, as it is here at Progress Texas, it takes listener support to keep fact-based independent media going. And if you've come to appreciate what we do at Progress Texas, now more than ever, we could use your support as a monthly contributor, and no amount is too small. Go to progresstexas.org/donate. Thanks to Rebecca Williams, Jamie Wood, and Beverly Wright, all of whom have joined the team lately. We appreciate all of you very, very much. That's the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch for this Thursday, July 17th, 2025. Links to all of these original stories can be found in our show notes. Progress Texas is a nonprofit, rapid response media organization promoting progressive messages and actions. While campaigns come and go, we're the permanent home for progressive media and action in the Lone Star State. I'm Chris Mosier. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great day. We'll see you again tomorrow morning.